Smart cities. They use technology to optimize infrastructure, mobility, public services, and utilities. They make sure that the endless urbanization of cities is both sustainable and healthy. Let's look at Estonia. They are the definition of smart administration. 99% of their public services are accessible online 24/7. But what's in the 1%, you might ask? Marriages, divorces, and real estate transactions. You're still going to have to leave the house for those. Then there's Norway. Their government and the private sector have come together to fight the nasties of greenhouse gas emissions by developing green technologies and procedures. In Shenzhen, China, they already have such an advanced electronic information industry, and now they're looking to build an intelligent transportation system. We're talking about automated and electric vehicles, vehicle connectivity, communication, and seamless vehicle sharing. All of their buses and taxis are already electric. What's next? Now, would you like to help make your city safer? Do you want to make your government more accountable and accessible? Do you want to make the gears of society move more efficiently as time goes on? We present to you the Hackmakers Smart Cities Virtual Hackathon Series. This is a two-part hackathon event running first on the 5th of March and second on the 4th of June. There's also a total prize pool of over 25,000 Australian dollars to be won. This event is also sponsored by Oracle Corporation, the Oracle Partner Network, the New South Wales Government, and Slack. We'll be looking for solutions in one of three challenge areas: smart administration, smart transportation, and safe cities. First up is the Rapid Application Development event from the 5th of March till the 8th of March. This is for you if you have limited technical ability and would like to create a minimum viable solution. Our second hackathon is for data analytics from the 4th of June to the 8th of June. This one is for those who are familiar with developing digital assistants or implementing data analysis that optimizes statistical efficiencies. Get guidance from experts in the industry. Our army of mentors from sponsors and partners are here to help you ideate, innovate, and create your vision for a smarter future. Let's imagine the future together.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. Hi, welcome. Welcome to our In Conversation with Tarun on what data management in cloud means for our smart cities. All right. So, Tarun, who is our, Oracle's system solution and engineering, and myself, I've been with Oracle for almost 10 years. Both of us have been working involved in some of the most initial smart cities projects or in some of the countries, right? And it basically is wonderful to reconnect again on this particular topic, right? Tarun, welcome to this session, right? I'm very excited. Yeah, I'm very excited. Yeah.
Thank you, Sriyan.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sriyan. Really, really delighted, and thank you for having me here. It's interesting, right? Because if you recollect some of our initial smart city projects here in Singapore that we have worked together, right, on smart transportation to start with, and it's like from what it was 3 to 5 years ago to now, there's been incredible amount of projects that government across Asia Pacific and Japan have embarked on, right? So really happy and delighted to be here.
Yeah. Okay.
And before we go on, I think let me put a little context to why is this important, right? As we see by 2050, statistics says that almost over 60-65% of population will start living in cities, right? And these are going to be mega cities. So it's important to start building these connected and citizen-centric services, right? And the focus is on sustainability. And having said that, I think let's quickly share a small video about what's Oracle's point of view on smart city,
Sure.
so that we can then get the discussion going. Right?
Sure, Tarun. Let me share the video.
Fantastic, Suyan.
Great. Yes. That was basically a good baseline, right, to start our conversation about smart cities and role of data management, and especially leveraging on cloud to provide a more viable solution for the smart city projects, right? So my first question to you, Tarun, right? Since the last couple of years, right, what has been the focus from the government, right, and from the smart city point of view, right? And what are the trends that you are seeing? Over to you, Tarun.
Yeah, thank you, Suyan, for this. We are seeing very, very interesting projects coming up, right? Really interesting projects that we have been working on. Right? And with the pandemic, we are seeing a lot of the digital and digital first citizen services being rolled out at scale. Right? Let me share a few charts on what's happening around Asia Pacific and Japan. Right? Now, first and foremost thing is, if you look at some of the data points that we are seeing. So first thing is, we feel that by 2050, around 53% of population will live in cities. Okay, so over half the population start living in cities. And in Asia Pacific and Japan, we have seen these mega cities built up. Right? I mean, if you look at population of people staying in places like Jakarta, over 10 million people stay there, and 10 million come into Jakarta to work every day, right? So that's the scale of cities that we are seeing in Asia Pacific, right? Cities in India, cities in China are huge, right? So these are mega cities. What we are also seeing are interesting trends and attributes of smart cities coming up. Okay, and let me share a few of them quickly. We are seeing increase in focus on public safety. Okay, how do we keep our citizens safe? Right? There is a constant threat. There are cyber threats. There are physical threats, and so on and so forth. So a huge focus is on public safety. We are increasingly seeing a lot of investments go into smart payments. Right, and we are talking about contactless payments. We are talking about digital banks. We are seeing telcos and providers such as Grab coming together to form digibanks. Right, We are seeing connected devices, connected cars as one of the key mobility solutions coming through, right? And more recently, today morning we were talking with some of our colleagues on how some of the Japanese car manufacturers are spending money and leveraging cloud to come up with connected car concepts, right? A very, very interesting journey in the digital transformation world for smart cities, right? So these are some of the trends that we are seeing, right? And more importantly, we are seeing, and in the video you saw about how Estonia has developed its citizen services, right? And we are seeing many of these government initiatives to have a single portal to have all these citizen services embarked upon, where citizens would just access the portal as a gateway into these services, right? So quite an interesting phenomenon happening right now as a part of the smart city initiatives across Asia Pacific and Japan. So over to you, Surya.
Thanks, Tarun. Yeah, as I understand, you're saying there is a investment ongoing, right? And some of these have been fast-tracked to the pandemic.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, mega cities have existed for a very long time. In fact, when I started my field career ago, then where they basically Singapore is not even like ready, that we actually have a lot of things that built within for smart city, be it safer, be it smart transportation and stuff like that, right? And all these cities have been incorporated in one system and have been modernized in them, right? So, however, we are seeing a focus in branding these as smart cities. So,
Yep.
my second question to you, right?
Yep.
What makes a city smarter, right? Is it the data or the infrastructure?
Sure. Actually, a very good question, and there's been a constant debate around it. But before I address that part of the question, Swan, I wanted to just quickly highlight a few things. When the pandemic hit, lot of the countries where, and these are large countries where the infrastructure to ensure that people working from home was not there, there were huge amount of challenges. Let me give an example, right? So when people moved away from cities into these smaller towns, the last mile connectivity was a big challenge, and it still is. Okay, we saw where a lot of the IT, folks who moved out from cities and started going back homes, identity and access management solution becomes critical, right? How do we get the infrastructure out to these smaller towns, have a connected network and so on, became extremely critical, right? So we are seeing increasing focus on Wi-Fi, on the last mile connectivity being established. Okay. The second part of going into is cloud has been a great enabler, right? Because we do not have to now rely on physical assets, infrastructure in our data centers. We can now go back and say, hey, I have a cloud account. Let me go ahead and start building these apps, these connected apps. Let's use SaaS as a model to consume and come up with meaningful insights and intelligence, right? So we are seeing last mile connectivity being established. We are seeing cloud and mobile-based deployment becoming mainstream, right? Over 90%. Okay. We are also seeing data analytics getting mainstream, right? Ubiquitous around services around AI, right? And all of these are geared through a lot of the countries who have just embarked on 5G technologies. Some of these countries who are relying on public sector for the last mile connectivity. We are seeing IoT systems being built to help, and I'll probably during course of our chat, Svian, I'm going to talk about how IoT is helping us incredibly, right? In this fight against pandemic, and not only that, as a part of our digital transformation. So in a nutshell, cities use these varied capabilities, technological capabilities to make it smart, right? And some of these are focused around starting from a telecom infrastructure to how do we harness talent and start to look at how do we roll out services where we can actually educate people, and not only that, provide them jobs, right? Varied services, water and waste management is getting extremely critical as a part of the sustainability engineering, right? So these are the trends that we are increasingly seeing now. But what we are also seeing are hyper-connected smart cities, right? Let me give you a simple, data points around it, right? So you will understand, right? Most people have understand smart city as here is my government, they have the set of data, and that's about it. But that's not what a smart city today is all about. A smart city today is where we are not talking about physical infrastructure. We are talking about dynamic infrastructure. We are talking about the heartbeat of a city, which is data. To connect citizen services, I need data across multiple ministries. I need to hear what my citizens are saying, which is where social media comes into play. To provide a connected services, I need to make sure that my citizens are literate, right? They are able to use basic IT systems to manage it. This is where citizens' data comes from, okay? And to ensure that I am able to hear what's happening. For example, we are building a huge, residential complex. How do I make sure that the sound in the residential complex gives me the feedback that there is something that's not right? Okay, how do I make sure that the drainage system is working fine? It's not going to flood. Are there sensor data being put in drainage systems today? Okay, what about waste management, right? How do I predict weather, right? Effectively, low-lying areas, as the rain increases, how can I inform people in low-lying areas to ensure that they use this data and come up with an intelligence to let them know that you need to evacuate, right? Things like that. So there is a combination of sensory data, open data sets, as we say, as a part of the social media, and mash all of them together to come up with meaningful intelligence using data analytics, AI, ML, right? So a lot of interesting work has gone into getting the traditional, supply chain data, the ERP data, the HCM information, and now adding a lot of the IoT censored information on a 4G, on a 5G, on an RFI network, right? And coming up with data analytics, right? So a lot of interesting stuff happening around it, right? So over to you, Sri.
Yeah, sure. Then I do realize that data seems to be the most critical element for the smart cities, right? And with the data generating increasing almost every second now, right? It actually falls annually as much as I think petabyte or more than that eventually. So, this comes to my next question. Can you explain it a bit more on how a data used for smart city project and what aspect of the data management and the critical success for the smart cities?
Sure, Shreya. It is not as complicated as we think it is. I think there are basic tenets of how we need to work around, right? And the most important aspect is around how do we collect the data. Okay. So in countries which are smaller in nature, collecting data could become simple or easier. But in countries where these are varied, it requires a little more effort to get departments on board, public and private organizations coming together to use these data sets. So it's a combination of how do we collect the data effectively, extract, integrate, very critical around integration. And then we use the capabilities of IT to analyze this data. At the end, it's all about amazing citizen services. How do we monetize? When I say monetize, it's not always about getting the money out of it. It's about utilizing the data to come up with actionable intelligence. And I'm using the word actionable intelligence because getting the data, trying to understand and then using it to do nothing is a crime, right? It's about using the data to come up with actionable intelligence. Let me quickly quote a few things that's happening. In countries that we have worked, we of course have the traditional enterprise data that comes in. For example, today I want to run an analytics or I want to come up with a what we call as a public safety plan. Right now, we of course look at what are some of these data points that come in. We also look at some of the financial information that's coming. Right? We also look at how's the traffic patterns like in the highways, in the roadside, on streets. So we are getting device information as well. And not only that, we're now starting to say, here is a building complex coming up. Why don't we put sensors to look at decibels in terms of quality of sound, right? We do not want the sound to be so high that it disturbs the entire region or the area, right? Can we put sensors around it? Right? Now, if these community that's being built, or the smart city community is being built, is huge across acres and acres of land, how do we make sure that we have appropriate safety controls, fire mechanisms, right? So that we can get alerts around it. So there are sensors around fire, around water, around humidity, around sound that's being built natively. And these are all physical assets. And what do we do with that? We take this data from the physical assets. The data gets pumped in through various sources as a part of our ingestion platform. And then we look at how do we access the data and come up with actionable intelligence. Okay. If, for example, if I know that there is an increase in temperature at a certain area and my fire alarm kicks in, I should be able to know how many people are going to get impacted or affected. Do I inform people that there is a fire in the basement, and what is going to be my evacuation path? Okay, these are real life examples, right? We also see lot of intelligence being built today around transportation. And Sven, you have been part of some of our transportation discussions, right? That how do we make sure that two buses of the same number do not come within a minute? It doesn't make sense, right? How do we talk to each of the multiple buses, and how do we optimize the bus routes based on traffic, and so on and so forth? So these are all dynamic in nature, right? And we're increasingly seeing these projects being rolled out, right? Leverage on the data at hand, start putting the data and come up with meaningful intelligence using analytics, using AI, ML, data science, what tools and technologies that are readily made available. And we are increasingly seeing cloud being a biggest enabler for us to do that, right? So that's what I had, Sriyan, around smart city, around what's happening around smart city, and how is the data being leveraged.
I see. All right. So basically, I think what you mentioned, so data gathering and making a meaningful out of the data, right? And using the data to a good use is critical success factor for any smart cities project, right? Then come to my next question. Can you provide some quick preview of some of the key aspects of data management solution for smart cities?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I was probably continuing to go to that when I stopped. So let me quickly run through what we have done in some of these implementations, which have gone live since a few years, right? Right. Now, the project in smart city is not going to be a single project, right? This project around smart city is going to be how we look at various organizations, departments, initiatives around each of the section that the smart city touches, right? So there could be a series of projects around having smart utilities, right, or public safety, or even education. Okay, and I'll probably give examples to talk about how we do that, right? So you'll have a clear idea to that. Now, to enable the data transfer across these gamut of projects or multiple projects, you need a robust network, right? Where we can be able to pump data, right? And if you're talking about, use cases like I need to look at what's the traffic, give them a real-time information of the traffic, reroute people in the traffic, and so on. I need to be able to see and make a real-time decision. Okay? And that's where we are seeing 5G as a huge enabler for us. Right? So that's going to be a network layer. The second part is around the infrastructure and service management, right? What devices are we going to use? The device connectivity, the data model. So we have, for example, when you're talking about buildings, there's a concept called building information management. Right? So the BIM solution comes as a part of urban redevelopment authorities or city builders and so on and so forth. Right? So this becomes a critical element of how do we do that. Now, on all of these aspects, the important and critical aspect that resides on top of it is how do we light up the physical assets? And that's where the data acquisition and integration comes about, right? Live feeds from, for example, you are on a highway and you are getting a data feed back, right? So the system should be capable enough to say, well, I am seeing a traffic buildup. What can we do? Why is there a traffic buildup? Can I send a traffic police there to look at them at real-time basis? If I need to send a traffic police, where are they located at this point in time? Which is the nearest traffic police control room where I can redirect the request to? Things around that, right? So data acquisition gives us a huge amount. And then becomes the central piece of what I call as the heart of a smart city architecture. That's where my fusion of the data happens, right? A data aggregation, data analytics, and data provisioning. Okay. Aggregation by acquiring, analytics to run its analytics tools. And once you've run it, then I provision the data for a consumption pattern. Okay. Now at Oracle, we also augment it through our GPU solutions. Right. So if you are talking from a smart or a DG bank, so our financial services business unit have solutions that works on top of it, right? Or our utilities GPU has a smart utility solution that works on top of it, right? And then you start to build partnered solutions or our applications around HCM, or social listening, or ERP, or citizen services, and so on and so forth, right? So that's where the data gets consumed, right? And these are services that are laid out. No, that's not the end, right? Now we have started increasingly seeing not only citizen and business-led services, we are now starting to see startup accelerators in given this data, right? So the open data initiatives that we have here, or my data that we see in Korea, right? So multiple countries have their own initiatives where they provide data to startups to come up with amazing business ideas to roll it out, right? So this is quickly a quick overview of what's happening in a smart city architecture, right? From a data point, we see governments leverage a lot of Oracle databases, and with the 19C and the Converge database coming in, it's amazingly with the amazing amount of capabilities that we have, the unification of data becomes far more easier. We are seeing customers talking about data lake architecture. We support that really, really well on our cloud, right? And combining them through the power of SQL, power of our machine learning, AI, ML tools, and so on and so forth. So this is what I call as data fusion. I'm fusing my data, and this is where the heart of a smart city really, really lies. So over to you.
Yeah, wow, Tarun, that was so cool, right? So I didn't really realize that so much more have been ongoing. I mean, to make a city smarter, right? So I think one more question, right? Where do you see this data processing happening, right? The key aspect of this data management, and of course, the traditional on-premise, or are you seeing a shift to the cloud?
Right, Srivan. We are okay. So I'm seeing a shift to the cloud, or I've started to see shift to the cloud in the last 18 months. Right, a lot of the initiatives are now becoming cloud first initiatives. Right, but I would also want to say that some of these projects are going to be critical. Some of these projects are going to be super sensitive. They will not go to cloud, but there's going to be a bunch of the projects, or quite a lot of projects, that are using cloud first strategy. Okay, and that's because of the amount of flexibility that we have, the speed of deployment that we have. So cloud is an amazing enabler from a technology standpoint, right? And let me share with you quickly some of the thoughts of how we are doing it in the cloud. Right now, if you're able to see my screen, right, increasingly we are seeing the traditional sources where we are able to pull the data into a data store. Okay, lot of the social data around smart meters and all these edge devices are pushing in data into some sort of a form, right? Some of them use Hadoop because that's been talked about for a few a long time. Some of them use object store to store the data, and so on and so forth, right? And this has been a traditional thought, right? Now there are two gamuts. So there is a data acquisition phase going on right now where we want the data to be acquired. And then there's a second part where people want to quickly look at the data and come up with self-services, the citizen self-services portals, data exploratory to come up with new insights and so on. So if I take you down the journey, we are seeing a lot of traction using our Oracle Cloud, our OCI, on autonomous. Okay, and why is it so? Self-serving, right? Self-secure, right? So we don't have to really think about a lot of stuff that we do on an on-premise deployment, right? So it's all been taken care. The infrastructure is taken care by Oracle, right? All I know is my data. I need to run these analytics blindingly fast, and I get a result out of it, right? So it's always going to be a result-driven or a business outcome. We are seeing traction around big data service, and I was talking to one of our colleagues, and we said, one of the use cases that we were talking about just today morning, was around connected cars, right? And they're generating ton of data, right? And analyzing the data at real-time basis, okay, using our big data service, right? And unification of the data becomes critical if you want the power of a schema on write, you go to the autonomous, right? You got to power the schema on read, and you want something like a lake, you use a service like a big data service. And the unification happens through the cloud SQL, right? The big data SQL traditionally using in the cloud SQL, and then the capabilities of streaming and analytics and so on, right? Not only that, look at the consumption, the capabilities. Use your notebooks if you're interested to Zeppelin, Jupyter, or you want to use machine learning or deep learning, TensorFlow, and so on and so forth. And not only that, we support SQL, spatial, graph, analytics, right? So all the tools and technologies that are available that are required are readily available. And then you can talk about our data science in the cloud, right? One of the coolest technology that we have built, right, around data science, right? And then the Oracle Analytics Cloud, where you can use for self-service visualization, look at the data sets, create data sets, run some quick algorithms around it, and come up with insights. Right? And we didn't stop there, right? A unification from a governance standpoint using our catalog service, right, that comes with it, right? So all of these are now coming together, Sriyan, right? And that is an amazing part of using our cloud. These services all work together, okay, and give you the ability to deploy it in the least possible time so that you can kickstart these projects, right? So cloud has been a great enabler for us. The technologies that we were always been a fan of on-premise are available in the cloud, and it's become bigger and better, right? So that's what we are seeing as a part of our Smart Nation initiatives. Right, over to you.
Wow, sure. That's a good insight, right? So Tarun, any last thought about our Oracle experience on Smart City project globally?
Yes, absolutely. Let me quickly share some of these case studies, right? So what I have done is I've picked up some of these case studies to just give you a flavor of how different cities use these technologies, right? And we have a ton of these. Like if you look at some cities like Albuquerque, right, use AI to reduce cost and better serve citizens, right? Using customer experience as a key enabler. We are seeing efficiencies of call center being analyzed. What are the typical calls that land? How can we roll out services to help them, proactively, where it improves citizen service around it, right? San Jose is the most innovative city, right? So they have an omni-channel delivery platform, right? As a matter of fact, San Jose also has transportation as a service model, TAS, as we do, right? And not only that, I picked up a couple of them, right? So they use our Oracle Cloud to transform and improve the business process, right? And here in Singapore, for some of you, you probably know the data transfer or the data integration that happens across multiple ministries. Awesome, right? So all of these capabilities around using our tools, processes, technologies, and with cloud being a great, I can't stop saying this, a great enabler, right? And last of an example that I thought in central London was around how do we provide staff with mobility and flexibility. This is getting prominence now with the pandemic, right? How do we enable technology to be made available to people working from home, right? And not only that, you are also aware of our initiatives using Oracle Cloud on what we have been doing to fight this pandemic. So,
Yes.
so that's what I had to quickly share from some of the experiences that we have on smart cities. Over to you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Tarun. Okay. I think I have posted the in our chat that for the audience. If you do have any questions, right, please feel free to ask us. Or if you feel like you want to talk, you just have to raise your hand, and then we will basically unmute you so you can actually speak out your question to Tarun, right? So I will give you a minute or two. If there is no more question from all of you, I think then we will just close this session. So any questions? Oh, okay. Yeah, somewhat. Okay.
Hi, good day. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good day, Mr. Tarun. Good day, Mr. Sui. I believe that this is a very interesting presentation, especially when I saw your presentation concerning the services that Oracle Cloud can support us with. I am sorry, I am a layman, but let me fashion my question in a way that perhaps you might be able to answer.
Sure.
In my head, I have a grid of intelligent things, okay?
Yeah.
Say a figure of, say, 10,000 intelligent things, each of them providing separate data points from SNMP to everything, okay? I would feed this data into Oracle Smart Utilities, for example, and then would that on its own be able to spawn off the data analytics needs that the data analytics will now convert, or will you also provide that for me if I require such?
Right. Thank you so much for asking that question. I probably should have given that as part of my thought as well. So again, thank you so much. Now there are two parts to this data analytics, the point that you did, right? So our connected apps that we have, right, have the data analytics built into these applications, right? So for example, these like you mentioned about utilities. So our utility application has built-in analytics that looks at the data as you feed in and comes up with intelligence, right? So to answer a part of the question, yes, our application space, our SaaS applications are not our traditional applications now, all of them or most of them have analytics built into as a part of the application space. So yes, you will get the analytics out of it. Now, having said that, I also want to extend your question a little bit to address in entirety. There will also be a time when you would say, I am getting these not only from utilities, I'm probably trying to get the data from 5 different application sources, right? And I want to build a custom analytics platform because I want to do it myself.
100%.
Right? So in that case, we also have enabled, or our platform enables you to pump in this data from 5 different sources, and you have the tools and technologies available to make the analytics run, right? And make the data available to be used by someone else, right? Because that is a critical aspect of, okay, building an analytics platform. So our applications are built in analytics, and if you want a custom analytics platform to be built, we support that as well.
Thank you very much. You have answered my question.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any more questions? Because I think there's one question about the recording. I already addressed that. So the recording of this session will be uploaded later in the same, the link will be provided from Hackmakers itself. Any other questions? Tarun, we wait until 5:45, then we will close this session.
Sure, sure.
Yep, another minute to go.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'll take this minute. Yeah, basically, I think we will run a set of a workshop for the next few days. So based on what Tarun probably have mentioned, we do have something on the machine learning session, getting started with Oracle machine learning, and also getting started with the data science SDK, and also some announcement on our Oracle Analytics Cloud as well. So those sessions will be happening tomorrow and Wednesday as well. So everything about 5, 6, 7. You can always check, save the Google workshop calendar, and then you will be able to attend those sessions. Okay, now is I think if there's no more question, thank you so much, Tarun. Yeah, your I mean, for the insights and all the information that you have provided us, right? And thank you everyone for attending this session, right? If there's no more questions,
thank you for having me here.
Yeah,
it was great to talk to you and connect again.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
Thank you so much.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. So I will end the session now. Thank you.